So today, I want to have a chat with you about something that I think is simple, but incredibly powerful. I honestly think that this is a game changer and it has quite literally transformed the way people do things. And the best part is, if you're ready, you can actually start implementing this today. And if you stick with it for literally just 30 days, you will see massive results. So what is this game changer that I'm talking about? Well, long story short, is to do the most difficult task first. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, if you want to hear more, stick around because I'm going to tell you how and why and different ways you can implement it into your daily life. Sound good? Let's go. You know, we need to be real with ourselves for a moment because there are going to be tasks that we just don't want to do. There are going to be plenty of things that we're just going to want to avoid, or just a simple thought about it makes our eyes just roll to the back of our head because we could think of 1,000 other things we'd rather be doing. We push all these things off to the side and to the back of our mind because they just seem overwhelming, or we just think they're too difficult. But here's the thing, and you already know this, putting things off to the side doesn't make them go away. And when we do procrastinate on these different things, it doesn't get easier when we do actually eventually come back to them. In fact, it just makes it that much harder because we've left it for so long. Or, at the very least, that's how our brain wants us to think. Because our brains are literally hardwired to avoid difficult things, to avoid discomfort. They will immediately point you in the direction of whatever's the easiest thing, whatever's the most comfortable thing, whatever's the most thing that makes you feel safe. However, by doing the difficult thing, by doing the thing that makes you uncomfortable, you just break that cycle. So what happens when you do the most difficult task first thing in the day? Well, it's probably pretty easy to guess that the rest of your day will just be a breeze. You know, you've conquered the challenge, you've done the difficult task, so everything else will just feel secondary, really. That's why it is so important to start the day with that task, the one that's mentally and physically draining. And because you tackle it early, you still have a lot of reserves left. And more importantly, you free up a lot of mental space for everything else, which is actually a pretty big culprit in feeling overwhelmed whenever you've got big to-do lists. So now we've chatted a little bit about, why we should do this. So now let's look at some ways you can just quite easily implement this into your daily routine. First one being, and it's probably actually my favorite, the one I do the most often, is to break things down. One of the biggest reasons we avoid difficult tasks is because they just oftentimes feel overwhelming and just this mammoth of a task that we just don't want to start. But when we break things down, everything just becomes easier, a lot less intimidating, and much more manageable. For example, instead of saying that you need to write a 10-page essay or report or whatever, start with step one, which is researching the topic itself. Once you do that, put it down, come back to it later, come back to it tomorrow. Then sit down, think of a title, write it down. If you want, you can leave it there, come back tomorrow. Sit down, write out a structure. And it is literally as simple as that. It is just doing things in little chunks. But you'd be surprised at how much you can actually get done if you take that approach. Because every single time you divide things into smaller pieces and you complete them, it's progress. And it gives you that little dopamine hit. And you're like, well, I want to get more done. This is great. I'm actually doing something here. And you'd be surprised at how much momentum that will actually create just because you've done a simple, small task to start this mammoth of a project you've got going on. The next tip is to set yourself a timer. And the fancy way of saying it is to use the Pomodoro Technique. And all you do is you set a timer for 25 minutes and you do absolutely nothing but focus on the task at hand. Once the alarm goes off, have a small break, do whatever you want, literally whatever you want. And when you're ready, you come back and you do another 25 minutes. And you just rinse and repeat that as long as you need. And you might think 25 minutes is not a long time. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not. But when you're deeply focused on something, you can actually get a lot done in 25 minutes. And you'll be surprised at how many times you're gonna end up hitting stop on the alarm and just carrying on working because you're actually in the middle of something and you're in a bit of a flow. So you're not gonna wanna stop, you're just gonna wanna finish and continue. Because the most difficult part is just getting started. Always. The start is always the most difficult. But if you do get started, even if it's just a small chunk and you stick to it religiously, 25 minutes break, 25 minutes break, that will still be a lot more than not starting whatsoever. Always. No matter how much you get done in those 25 minutes. Tip number 3 probably the most difficult one for most people, to be fair, myself included, and it's to eliminate distractions. And what's a distraction? Well, let's be honest, our phones. So you need to put them away, put them on do not disturb, turn them off, whatever it may be. Just do what you can to step away from that thing and just get something done. Focus on what you need to focus on without having your phone around you. One thing that actually works like a charm for me personally is to wear some over-ear noise cancelling headphones. Just completely cuts out all the distractions and I can just completely focus on what I need to focus on. And last but not least, it's not really a tip, it's more of a requirement for all of this really, is to make it a habit. Because you might try this for 1, 2 or 3 days and it'll go great. But then on the 4th day, you'll slip up and you feel like you failed, you feel like you've not done it properly and you quit. But I need you to remember that consistency isn't a straight line, okay? It's up, down, up, down, up, down, always. You're never gonna make the same amount of progress every single day. So if you work for 3 days, 4th day you don't do anything, but then 5th, 6th and 7th and 8th you do, you've not failed, you've not lost, you're still making good progress. Just don't think too much about that day where you didn't get anything done, because it's honestly all right. But you have to do whatever it is that you can to make it as frequent as possible. Daily isn't actually always possible, and that's fine, because life gets in the way and shit happens. It just does. But the more consistent you are with it, the more it will stick. And then doing the hard things first and doing the most difficult things, the daunting things, the things you've been putting off, will just feel normal. Will just feel like you're just doing something, whatever, just like getting up and brushing your teeth. It's just second nature to you at this point. One way that might actually help you to do this over the next 30 days is to set yourself the ultimatum. It's that until that difficult task is done, you are not allowed to do literally anything else. Obviously, that's situation dependent, because you might have to wake up and go straight to work. That's fine, because that's something you cannot control. But what you can control is what you do when you return. So technically, that could be your first real difficult task of the day, which you set for yourself. So as soon as you're back from work, you get home, you get that thing done, whatever it may be. Because obviously I know the whole theme of this video is to get the hardest task done first. And I know in real life, that's not always possible, but it's more of a metaphor, more of a saying than a literal command. Just the fact is, as soon as you are able to get to that thing, you focus on it and you commit to it and you get it done. It'll take some willpower, that's for sure. And those first couple of weeks are going to feel awful. They always do with all these habits and all the different things that you build in and all the self-improvement things that you do. But once you get past that mark, it's just there. It just becomes a part of you. And once you really do make it a habit, your productivity will absolutely skyrocket. I can guarantee you that. Because getting the hardest thing done first isn't just about being productive though. It's about freeing up mental space, building momentum, and setting yourself up for success.